This is a very large group. I'm Roger Michaels, president of iQ Credit Union, and very happy to be here this evening to introduce the program that we have. It's my honor to introduce Steve and Annette Economides. They're New York Times best-selling authors. A number of you already have books. They have done some very amazing things to earn their credentials as living the American dream without debt. Coming from a credit union, that's not really something we want to see all the time, without debt. But we are for responsible borrowing, and we are for people saving money and doing anything they can. Today's economy is difficult for everybody. The more you can save, the better you are on that. The Economides had 5 grown children. 2 are still in college, and they put them through college without any debt. Their modest income allowed them to pay off their home in 9 years. They paid cash for all their cars. They have a family of 7 that they fed for $350 a month. They took great debt-free vacations, and they helped their kids earn their college degrees without borrowing any money. You saw earlier the TV programs, snippets of TV programs they were on, from the Today Show, Good Morning America, Fox News, The Talk, Marie Osmond Show, Dr. Phil. I kind of wonder where Oprah is in this whole thing. Sounds like one of her things. But they're known as America's Smart Money Family. And it's our privilege to bring them here tonight to you. So Steve and Annette, it's all yours.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm muted. Are we on? I'm on.
I'm very soft-spoken. You know, Roger, one of the things we like to do with credit unions is not borrow money, but I got to tell you that when you get families in there that manage money the way we do, you will have more assets to loan. So there's going to always be more money.
Big bank balances. Okay, so Roger already said a lot of what I was going to say in our intro. We have 5 children. And they're almost grown. We're almost empty nesters. That is just crazy to think about sometimes. But we're in the stage right now with young adults that are still living at home where we're up till midnight just about every night because they work jobs and they close retail and they want to come home and talk. So we're bleary-eyed in the morning because we don't want to miss that opportunity, but it sure is fun watching and hanging with them at night. As Roger said also, we've done numerous media all over America. We've done some even in Europe and Australia. We have a presence all around. We have 3 books that we've written, and the first one is a New York Times bestseller. You guys have our newest book, which in 2012 was awarded the Best Parent Choice Award and Resource. So we were pretty excited about that won that award. There's our 3 books. And gosh, if you had told me 10 years ago that I would be in this place, I would have said you're out of your mind.
Annette wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, raise our kids, manage our house, and now she's an author.
Yeah, and you know, math and science were my favorite subjects. So how do you figure that out? That now I'm writing and doing this kind of thing. But seriously, we do love public speaking, and we travel all over America. And so we're thrilled to be here tonight, and certainly we'll be available afterwards to talk to anybody that wants to come chat with us. I want to start by saying, oh, actually here, we have a free email newsletter on our website at moneysmartfamily.com, and we have a huge Facebook family. So if you want to join us on Facebook, we would love for you to interact with us on Facebook. Terrific group of friends, and I try to post.
We're always talking about saving money, how you do things. Like today's question was, what do you do with gift cards? How do you keep track of them? Do you spend them all? What do you use the money for?
And sometimes they're silly questions, like which color beans should I put in my chili today? Should it be white, black, or pinto? You know, which one should I pick? Or red, kidney. And so, you know, we had 100 people answer that one. So it just depends on what I feel like for the day. Okay, so I'm going to start by talking about today's topic, which is building a money smart family. And we're going to talk about tools, rules, and jewels. And we're going to start by saying that the world revolves around systems. There's systems everywhere. Okay, there's the solar system, there's the circulatory system. Everywhere you look, there's security systems in our homes.
There was a system for you to get into this event tonight, right? And if they had botched the system, you would be very frustrated because you'd still be standing outside. But they have great people working at IQ Credit Union, and they have a great system, and everybody got in here, and everybody got what they needed, and it's wonderful when systems work.
So systems help us accomplish more and be more efficient. And tonight we're going to talk about 3 systems that we use. We're going to talk about a tool for money management, we're going to talk about a tool for time management, and we're going to talk about a tool for money smart parenting.
So we call this talk Tools, Rules, and Jewels. And I did that because it rhymed, but really I wanted it to be systems, following the directions and getting the most out of them, and making bank on it. But that just didn't rhyme. So we came up with tools, rules, and jewels. Every job requires tools. Now I talked to several of you before we started tonight. Some of you are teachers. Some of you work as machinists, bankers. The spectrum is huge as far as what we do. But I venture to say that the first day on the job, when you were right out of college or right out of high school and you took that first job, you were overwhelmed and you didn't do what you were going to do very well. Tools. Every one of us has tools. And knowing how to use a tool correctly is what's going to produce a good result. Now, if I took this hammer and you'd never seen a hammer before, chances are you wouldn't hold it correctly. You wouldn't know how to use it. But, I mean, obviously, hammer's been around for thousands of years, millions of years, who knows? The first hammer was a rock. If I were to tell you how to use a hammer properly, it'd be really boring, but you hold it with your hand, you use your wrist, you hold it this way, you don't hold it here, it's not a back scratcher, you don't use it to comb your hair. I mean, all those things seem really silly to talk about a tool, but this is a tool. And if we use it according to the rules, the way it's designed to be used, we're going to end up with a jewel. We're going to end up with a good result.
Now let me cut in and just ask, is there anybody in this room that has seen Disney's Little Mermaid? Can you raise your hand if you've seen Disney's Little Mermaid? Do you remember the part in there where the girl is finding the fork and she uses it as a comb in her hair? So the tools are around, but like Steve said, a lot of us don't know how to get the most out of them or use them the way they were intended to be used.
Now, we were driving around today, and there are some really gorgeous homes in this part of the country. And gorgeous trees, too. We don't have trees in Arizona. Well, we have some, but they aren't the same as here. You look at a well-built house, and you go, wow, that would be really something to live in that house. And sometimes you might even think, wow, the person who built that was an expert craftsman. They were good at their job. They knew how to plan, they knew how to use the tools, and they produced an excellent result. And the systems we're going to talk about, when we started using them, we were clumsy craftsmen. You wouldn't want to see the product we produced. But over time, with practice, the product got better. And that's what we're going to help you with tonight. So the first thing we want to talk about is a tool for money management. A tool for money management. And this is it. Isn't that beautiful? Wouldn't you love to own that? That is our budget system. Now, it's not very pretty. It is the tool we used to pay off our first home in 9 years. We bought a repo. It was a very small house. It was 4-bedroom, but it was only 1,500 square feet. And at the time we bought that house, I was earning about $22,000 a year. By the time we moved out of the house, our average income for those 9 years we were in the house was about $33,000. And we paid that house off in 9 years. We were supposed to have paid $150,000 in principal and interest. We only paid about $70,000. And when we sold the house for $80,000, we did something that most people will never do. And that was actually get back more money than we paid out in principal and interest. But it can be done if you have a system to manage your money. Now, we're going to talk about a couple different systems. And remember, systems sound terrible. They may sound restrictive. But when you use a system properly, like you use a hammer properly, and produces great results, you're going to be so excited that you're going to go, man, I want to do this better. And that's what we're talking about. Now, the 3 simplest systems for budgeting. One is just do things in cash. How many of you have ever used a cash envelope system?
And the 3 most commonly overspent categories in a household budget, can you guess? Food, recreation, and clothing.
We don't
Okay.
recommend doing cash for utilities. We don't recommend doing cash for a car payment or insurance. That gets kind of funky, so you need to have a bank account. But if you took those 3 most commonly overspent areas and just every paycheck had a system where you had written down, I want this much money in cash for this envelope, this much money in cash for that envelope, this much money, you would reduce your overspending probably by about 40 or 50%. Because cash doesn't lie. You look in the envelope and it's time to go recreate, and you look and you see you have $3.50. You've just limited yourself. But limits produce incredible amounts of creativity if you're willing to live under the system. So if you say, I only have $3.50, I might be able to rent a movie for that and get a bag of popcorn. And we can have a good time knowing that all of our other financial goals are being met. Would you be okay with that? I would. There was a family we were coaching. They were earning, this was years ago, they were earning about $20,000 a year. They had 5 kids, 1 on the way. They qualified for welfare. They didn't know it. They had some debt issues, and we helped them work through their debt issues. And once we balanced their budget, and when I use the word budget, I know it's putting a misconception in your head, and I'll explain it in a second. They had about $10 left over for recreation. And we looked at the wife and we said, Carol, can you survive for 2 weeks on $10? She said, I would love it, knowing that our mortgage is covered, we have money for clothes, we have money for food, we have money for utilities. All of that's covered. I'm going to enjoy $10. I'm going to sleep good.
And so they ordered, did takeout Chinese. They put, their kids were little at the time, they put their kids to bed, and they brought the Chinese food home, and they had a candlelight dinner together after the kids were in bed. And they ate Chinese food, and she said it was one of the most wonderful nights of her life because she knew that everything had been covered financially and they didn't have to stress any longer.
Now, I'd like to tell you that you do this, you'll become a millionaire. You could, but really the secret in accumulating wealth is not in making massive amounts of money. It's about managing what you have. And you don't accrue massive amounts of money if you haven't learned to manage small amounts first. It's not sexy. This would not sell a book. Learn how to make $1 million by saving pennies. No, it's not going to do it. It's not, but it's true. And when we went to set off to pay off our house, the first extra payment was $1 extra.
It seems so silly now to look back and think on that, but it just started snowballing from there. And as Steve's income increased, we kept our standard of living the same. We didn't say, wow, look at that bonus check that just came in. Let's go take a vacation. No, we said, let's put a chunk down on the house. So when you have a budgeting tool that helps you know where all your money is going and everything is being accounted for, it helps you stay so focused. And it actually is fun. It's a fun addiction once that starts to happen. It's a game that starts to be played, and it's a really fun game.
So one type of system is do some stuff in cash. Little envelopes. Dave Ramsey sells a cash envelope system. Go to daveramsey.com, look at his cash envelope system. If that works for you, great. If it doesn't, look for something else, but come up with a system. A second system, for those of you who love computers, would be to do a computer-based budgeting system. Now, there is one that we recommend, because all of the rest of them, in our minds, are backwards. Because what they do, things like Quicken and Mint, and I think Microsoft Money does the same thing, you look at it after your month is over, and it tells you what you've spent. And if you haven't spent what you set out to spend, like if you say, I'm going to spend $200 a month on recreation, and you only spend $100 in that recreation account, do you know what you are? Negative $100. Now, in my book, if I've put $200 in an envelope, a virtual envelope, and I've only spent $100, you know what I am? I'm plus $100. I have $300 for next month. There is one system that does that besides our paper system, and that is envelopes.com, MVELOPES.com, and it's free. You hook up your credit union account to envelopes.com, and every time you get a paycheck, you tell it so much into mortgage, so much into clothes, so much into car payments, so much into utilities, and then every time you spend something, you say, this one comes out of utilities, this one comes out of clothes, this one comes out of recreation. But the key is not the computer, the key is not the envelope, the key is not the budget book. You know what the key is? Following up on the system, learning to use it properly. And everything in life requires work. It's not like a 23.5-minute sitcom that's over in half an hour, you know, with 7 minutes worth of commercials. Do you know how many hours go into producing a 23.5-minute sitcom? Hundreds of hours. Yet we see the end result and we think, oh, life is easy. That's the way my money should be managed. It's not true. But it doesn't have to take you hundreds of hours a month. Doing our budgeting system takes about 4 hours a month.
Actually, less.
That's because when she does it without me doing the math, because I'm dyslexic, or is that dyslexic? I can't remember.
So he transposes numbers a lot. And so
she gets it to balance the first time. I've never experienced that.
But you know, one thing I want to share about the budgeting, and to think about it in a really nice way, is budgeting is one of the most awesome tools for creating teamwork in your marriage. Because when you set goals and you say, honey, let's work on this together, and you try to get on the same page, what you can accomplish together, it's like a horse pulling a cart. How much can the horse pull if it's by itself and it's got the cart versus I think it's more than double.
It is.
When there's two horses pulling a cart, it multiplies, and I don't know all the math terms, but it's far more than double of what they can pull in that cart. So if you are a married couple in here and you decide, we're going to do this together, we're going to get on the same page, and it's not the kind of thing where if you're a guy, you say, well, honey, I'll give you $10 for clothes, but I need $100 for electronics this month. That is not what we're talking about. Or if you're the woman and you're saying, honey, I'll give you $20 for home repair, because you know he likes to go to Home Depot, but I want $100 for clothes. That is not what we're talking about, okay? We're talking about being fair, working together, and deciding there will be money for everything if you decide you're going to do it together. And you're going to look at what those goals are, and you're going to work towards those goals.
All right, the last one system I want to talk about is our paper budgeting system. And basically what we do is we've taken the envelope system, and we have 20 categories in our budget, and they're on paper, on recreation, on clothes, on pets, gifts. We have all these accounts. And this is all covered in our first book, America's Cheapest Family Gets You Right on the Money. People have written us from all over the world saying this is the simplest method to understand, the most logical method for budgeting, and it works. And we get letters all the time from people who said, we've never done this before, and now we have more money in the bank than we have ever had, and we will never go back to living the way we did. As a matter of fact, we can't figure out why we ever did that. It just didn't make sense. So the rules are that you need to have a system. You need to regularly update the system. We do our budget on the 1st and the 15th of every month. We've done that for 30 years, and it's become second nature.
It's like brushing your teeth. I don't even think about it, okay? If we're not busy, if we've got the time, we'll do it together. Watching a movie we already know, like It's a Wonderful Night. We watch that several times a year. Okay, but if it's the kind of thing where we're busted busy, which a lot of times we're traveling and speaking, then I'll say, honey, I'll take care of the household budget. And I'll just crank it out, and it's done.
Okay. So the tool is a budgeting system. Find the one that works for you. The rules are that it needs to be updated regularly. You're going to record every expense, and it seems tedious, but it is going to be so rewarding because you'll be able to manage what you have.
In other words, you can't set up a budget in January for your New Year's resolution and say, we're good. I don't have to look at it till next December. That is not what we're talking about, okay? We are talking about a living, breathing thing that is part of your life and part of your household, where you look at it at least twice a month. This is not something you need to do every week, but you need to do it we recommend more than once a month, at least twice a month.
Now, most of you have jobs, and you work for companies. And if you worked for a company that didn't manage the money well and couldn't pay you every time payroll was due, how long would you work for that company? Not very long. And if you worked for a company that wasn't profitable, They didn't manage the money well enough so that they turned a profit. You probably wouldn't work for them very long either. But I venture to say that many families in America, if they were businesses, they would be called the government. No, they would not be in business very long because we aren't looking at our households like a business. And the best businesses out there have someone who's committed to managing the finances, to reeling them in, and keeping them under control so that they can reach their goals. Okay. So
Okay.
the jewels that you get from money management are
Peace, confidence, and an ability to pass on to the next generation the principles that you're learning yourself. As you're teaching your kids, all you need to be is one step ahead of them. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be excellent. You don't have to be super proficient. You need to be a step ahead of them.
And it results in that Toyota Tacoma, that was our daughter's truck. She paid $11,500 for cash when she was 22 years old. She sold it for $12,000 3 years later. That's our house that we live in. Those are our kids right now that are living at home. We have 2 that don't live at home. But it's peace. And we see them doing the same things. They're better at it than we are. And it's awesome. So the second tool we want to talk about is time. Because most of us don't seem to have enough of it. Back in the early 1900s, Bethlehem Steel was run by a man named Charles Schwab. Not the Charles Schwab of investments. This is the Charles Schwab of Bethlehem Steel. And he put out a query for someone. He would pay someone any amount of money that could teach him how to get his executives to produce more income, better product, just to produce more, be more productive. So along came a guy named Ivy Lee, who was a PR executive. And that's Ivy Lee. Isn't he cute? Looks pretty studious, very smart. And he came into Charles Schwab and he said, all I need is 15 minutes of time to meet with your executives, and I will revolutionize your company. He goes, 15 minutes? You can't do it. He says, you know, I'll take you up on it. He says, what's it going to cost me? He says, you don't write me a check. You don't pay me anything unless you think it's valuable. Okay? Now, Charles Schwab's a smart businessman. He goes, this isn't going to cost me anything unless it works. I can choose the price to pay. I like that. I'd like to go grocery shopping that way. You know? And so he takes 15 minutes with his executives, and he tells them 6 things. No, not 6 things. He tells them to list. Every day they have to do one thing, and that is sit down at the end of the day, make a list of the top 6 things they want to accomplish the next day. Have that sitting on their desk. The next morning they come in, they start with item number 1. It's all prioritized, and they don't stop doing that until they get it done. Interruptions come, they go back to it, and then they cross it off. Then they go on to the next list, next item on the list, and then they do the next item, and then they do the next item. Cross it off. At the end of the day, take that list, update it, 6 items to do the next day. Doesn't it sound like rocket science? Simple, simple stuff. So they did it for a month. Charles Schwab, being an astute businessman, studied the numbers very carefully, measured the productivity of his executive staff, and wrote a check. I'm going to read this. The U.S. Labor Department reported that in 1910, the average worker was earning $2 a day. $12 per week, $624 a year. Charles Schwab wrote a check equivalent to 34 years of full-time labor for one employee to Ivy Lee because the information was so valuable. And it sounds so stinking simple. He paid him $25,000 at that time. That's the equivalent of $600,000 today for spending 15 minutes with his executives. This is time management. It's a tool.
Okay, so how do you manage your time? How do you keep track of things around your house? Do you do it on your phone? Do you have a wall chart? Do you do it on your computer? Do you carry a date book? Do you have some way to keep track of appointments, activities, to-do lists? Because if you don't, you're missing a slice of life. You've got to do it. Rules for managing your time. For us, we have a family staff meeting.
Businesses have them. Why not families?
You know, if you look at the American family today, just in the money realm, do you say, is the American family profitable? No. So I'm not saying you have to be all business, but I think we have to look at our families and we have to say, let's be a team. Let's conquer this. And so for us, it's a Sunday night staff meeting. It gets rid of the last minute, Mom, I need cupcakes for a birthday party, or I need a costume for a play, or I need certain items for my science project.
You know what's so funny is we started this with our kids when they were very small. Our youngest is now 19. She's still living at home, going to college. We still have our staff meetings. But when they're about 9 or 10, they did things I never did until I was probably married 15 or 20 years. They started planning for Christmas in February. They started talking about Halloween costumes in June. They learned to plan, and they did a far better job than either of us ever did.
So our staff meeting helps us to go over work schedules. Abby was doing physical therapy for a while from her knee injury. We do weight training, we do chores, we'd cover cleaning day, cooking day. These are all things we do if we were having events or parties. Groceries, which I really don't have time to talk about tonight, and I have a whole book about that. Oh, here it is. Basically, the less time you shop, the more you save. So if I could share one thing with you tonight, do you want more time? Do you want to eat better? Then spend some time learning about groceries. And you know what?
Learning to plan your meals, your menu for the week, for 2 weeks, so you go to the store less often, so you have more time. It sounds crazy. We shop once a month.
You don't have to buy this from us. The library has it. Okay? Just go check it out of the library. Put it on hold. Every library in America has this book. And if yours doesn't, you can request it. So you don't have to buy it. But read it. Because if you want to spend less time shopping and have more food in your house, then do something about it. Okay.
So those are the rules. Show up to the staff meeting, have a list of the items you need to talk about at the staff meeting, and a 9-year-old child can do this. Some 54-year-old men can't.
Abby is the youngest. Abby is our youngest of 5, okay? This kid just ran around the house trying to keep up with everybody. So she potty trained herself. She taught herself how to tie her own shoes, okay? When we would do schedules with the older kids, at first the 2 youngest ones would be in the other room. She's the one that came to us and said, is it time for me to be part of staff meeting yet? I think I'm old enough. And I don't even know, she was little. And then like a couple of years ago, I think when she was 16, she started her part-time retail job. She said, you know what? I don't need these cash envelopes anymore. I want a grown-up paper budget. Can I have that? So Abby just has been running to keep up with everybody else her whole life, and she's so far ahead of everybody. She is an absolute crack-up. And you guys can have that too. Okay, so the tools are that you have to have something to manage your time. The rules, like Steve talked about, is once again, just like the budget, you have to reconcile it twice a month. Well, for us, that weekly staff meeting, and I think Steve and I would still keep doing it, even if the kids were gone. Steve and I would still have a once-a-week staff meeting to go over different things on the calendar. And then the jewels are, man, if you have kids at home, or even if you're just married, or whoever you're living with, whoever constitutes your family today, you're going to build a team. You're going to build a unity within your home. And it's such a fun thing to do. I can't emphasize enough how awesome it is to all work together.
And you're going to accomplish much more. If you set a goal to get out of debt, if you set a goal to build a house, buy a house, pay off a house, if you set a goal to buy a car, pay off a car, having a staff meeting where you talk about how are we doing on that goal, you're going to go so much further. Look, 95% of people never write down their goals. Or if they do it in January and they forget about it. Having a staff meeting where you talk about these things that are really important once a week and spend maybe half an hour focusing on them is going to set you light years ahead of the rest of the people around you.
How many times do you get a phone call in the middle of the week where someone's saying, can you do this? And you forget to deal with that. Or you're like, I'll get to that. Well, now, because of that weekly staff meeting, when people call and they say, can you do this? I say, oh, you know what? I can't answer that right now, but I can on Monday morning, because every Sunday night we have our staff meeting. So I go to my page in my red book, call it a red book. It's just a notebook with loose leaf paper in it where I have a day, each day of the week, page for each day of the week. And I go to Sunday and I write down whatever I've been asked to do, whether it's to help on a committee for one of the kids' activities or to help a church or to help on a sports team, whatever. You know, whatever it is, it goes in the red book.
So how would your life be different if you had a tool for managing your money, a tool for managing your time, and you worked it so that every week you knew where you were going and whether you were on track or not? How would your life change? Would you have more peace? Would you get more accomplished? Would you feel better about where you're going? I know you would. And we're going to talk about the next tool, which is, oh, sorry, I didn't tell you about this. This is a picture from Budget Living magazine came and did a feature story on our family. And this is when Abby was about 9 or 10 years old. I'm talking to her in the picture. But that's how we do our staff meeting. We don't do it at a boardroom table. We sit at our couches in our living room, around the coffee table, and we talk. And
everybody has a date book.
It accomplishes incredible things.
And now they use their tablets and their laptops and whatever they want to use. Right. Okay. So the next topic we want to talk about, moving from money management and time management, the third one that we said we were going to talk about tonight is money smart parenting. And this is huge. You know, we put up a Facebook post, several weeks back. And I titled it, I love it when my kids ... And do you know that I got very few answers to that? And it just made me so sad, because I think in America today, we aren't looking at kids as an asset. We aren't looking at our families as a team. And kids are thought of as, I don't know, an inconvenience, a financial burden. I'm not sure, but I don't know why what we're doing is so different from what's out there in America today. I'm not really sure. I haven't figured that out. But what I want to share with you tonight, what we want to share with you tonight, is how you can make kids more enjoyable in your life. How your kids will grow up and be your friends. How they're not going to be, and I won't say out of 5 kids, all of our kids have not turned out this way. But the ones that have are just such a joy, such an absolute joy. So we need to remember when we're parenting that we're raising future adults. We want our kids to see the relationship between work, earning, diligence, and their attitudes. We think our kids experience peer pressure. Ha! I got news for you, folks. You know, if you've got kids in grade school or middle school or high school, there is tremendous parent pressure out there. Tell them the story about that one Boy Scout and the car. Remember that one?
We have 3 sons who made it to Eagle in Boy Scouts. And a lot of that has to do with Mom, because Dad is a right-brain creative who can't remember from one day to the other what he's supposed to be prioritizing, but he uses systems, and they help. But we're out after a Scout meeting, and I went to all the Scout meetings, and I was part of the troop, and this dad comes up to me and says, Steve, what do you guys do about cars for your kids? Now, we live in Scottsdale. It's a higher-end neighborhood in the Phoenix area, and there are a lot of Mercedes and Range Rovers and Bentleys and
BMWs.
You name it, they're there. There's even a Rolls-Royce stretch limo, but that just seems ridiculous. I don't know. Anyway, so the dad asked me, what do you guys do about cars for your kids? Because my daughter, who's 16, is putting a full-court press on me for a new car, and she's not talking Chevy or Kia. She wants a BMW.
And you know what Steve said?
I said one word.
Nothing.
And the reason is because if I can train a child to set small goals initially and reach them, and then medium-sized goals and then reach them, and then set a goal like buying a car for cash, and they can reach that goal, I don't want to steal that opportunity from them. That is a phenomenal opportunity. That is a phenomenal accomplishment. I venture to say that most adults can't say that they paid cash for cars. I think there are probably several in here that could, though, because you guys are an unusual group, and you're smart. Our son was taking a merit badge. It's called the Personal Management Merit Badge, and the counselor was asking him, so, Joe, what would you think if, like, one of your friends bought a really fancy car? And how would that make you feel? He said, well, that would really depend on how much of the car he owned.
And the
He
guy
said,
went, I've never had a kid say that before.
He understood, though. He understood.
Okay, so, you know, I know we're different. We're different. You're probably different out there, too. And, you know, when you don't give a kid a car when they're 16, first of all, our kids, no, next to Miami, I think Phoenix is the second-rated city for uninsured motorists, okay? We were involved in a car accident several years ago. It was a 3-car accident. Everybody walked away, and we were the only ones with insurance, okay? So we really discourage our kids from driving at 16. They can start driving, and they have their permits, but they don't get their licenses till they're closer to 18. And you know what? That means a little bit more inconvenience for us. That means we're driving our kids places, and they don't like it a whole lot. So we drop them off a block before where they have to go. I don't care, okay? But you know, the truth is, we're spending more time in the car with our teenagers, and we know our kids.
And with door locks, you know, they can't get away from the lecture.
So it may mean some inconvenience, but I really encourage you, don't hand your kid a car, even if it's a beater car. Don't give them a car when they're 16.
Let them earn it. Let them earn. They will value it so much more if they do.
And when they do drive, let them drive your car so they're not a principal driver, and make them pay for their own insurance. I'm probably getting ahead of myself. Okay, because then if they get a ticket, guess who it affects? Them, not you, if they pay for their insurance.
So years ago, we were running a financial coaching ministry at our church. And one night, we had a couple come over. Actually, the couple was my boss. He was in severe financial distress. He ended up eventually losing his business. I ended up out of work. But we were helping him get out of debt. They left, and our son John, who was 9 at the time, came up to us afterwards, and he said, Mom and Dad, when are you going to do financial coaching with me? I went, holy cow. You know, we thought he was just going to catch it as we did it. He saw us caring for these other families. He saw us working with them, agonizing with them. He saw them going from tears of distress to tears of resolve to confidence as they reached their goals. And he wanted us to care about him the same way. 9 years old, he's now 30. It set me on a course to discover a way to transfer that information that we'd learned to him.
So we needed a tool, basically. We didn't have a tool. We needed a tool. We wanted a tool to develop discipline in our kids, to, like we said earlier, to work on their attitudes, to teach them diligence, to raise them up to be independent, to teach them to plan. And so we developed the Money Smart Kids system, and it's over there on the table.
It's also described in the book that most of you got as you came in. And there's all kinds of details about it. But basically, when we started using this tool, developing this tool, we stunk at it. Because we thought that training a child to manage money was their responsibility. Thank you. You know, you have the power of discernment that it took me several months to figure out. You know, I thought, okay, I'm going to develop this great system. Here you go, John. Go ahead and run it.
Or that they're just going to get it from osmosis, okay? Well, if they grow up in a home where mom and dad know they're frugal and blah, 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 you know, they'll pick up on it. No, unless we're intentional and unless we can break it down into baby steps to feed it to them and teach it to them, they're not going to figure it out.
You know what the truth is? Child discipline, I'm not talking about spanking, I'm talking about training your children, is nothing more than parents being disciplined in their approach to doing it and consistent. And so what we did initially was, I told John, I'm not giving you an allowance, because I don't believe allowances are a smart thing to do, because paying a child for just living and breathing is just dumb. That's entitlement. And we know how entitlements work. We won't talk about that. So what I did is I gave him 3 cups, little styrofoam cups, and I labeled one spend, one save, one give, and I put it on his window ledge in his room. And whenever money came his way, we'd put money in there. He'd divide it up, you know, 10% to give, 20% to save, and the rest to spend. And it was dumb, because I went to count his money one day, and I knocked all the cups over. You know, Dad's a klutz. So we came up with a better system, and that was to have him earn points each day. And I'm just going to go over this briefly, but it's described in the book. Every day they can earn 4 points. A morning point, get up, get dressed, make your bed, eat breakfast, and do it all without complaining. Attitude. Second point, school. Do your schoolwork well. Put your name on your paper, turn it in on time, whatever it is. Do your schoolwork to the best of your ability. It doesn't have to be perfect. You get your school point. Third point, do your chores. We had chores. We don't live on a farm. We live on 3/4 of an acre with a citrus orchard. We have work to do around our house. Do the chores you're asked to do. Do them in a timely manner. Do them well with a good attitude. No stinking thinking. You get your chore point. And at the end of the day, because we live in the Southwest, we call it round up. You go around the house, pick up your stuff that you left out. Because with 7 of us in the house, if we all left 3 things out a day, that'd be 21 things a day. In a week's time, there'd be over 100 items left out with things hanging from the ceiling fans, and we didn't want that. So we did roundup every night. And it worked because the kids every day, this is like real life, right? They have to fill out their time card at work, otherwise they don't get paid. So they'd fill out their time card. Every Sunday we'd have payday. Based on the number of points they got a certain amount of pay. Started off with 5 cents a point, then it went up to 20 cents a point when they got older. At age 11, they start buying their own clothes. They had to keep their money in these envelopes, and they had to keep a little ledger on them. Now they're learning math, they're learning percentages, they're learning saving, budgeting, planning. We had them put a wish list inside of their spend envelope so that they would write down the things they wanted, because we realized that as adults, if impulse buys sink the family grocery budget, okay, there's a study we cite in our grocery book where they surveyed over 500,000 purchases, and 60% of the items that are put in a grocery cart are there on impulse. 60%. It's a huge thing. Well, don't impulse buys affect everybody?
Okay, let me just cut in and say we have a special page on our website called, it's moneysmartfamily.com/IQ.
We've got some free stuff there for you.
So we've got a budgeting form there for you, a debt list. We're going to put up a wish list. So visit that and you can get download some free things.
So weekly payday was the parents' discipline part. We had to fill out, have them sign, we signed the time card every morning at breakfast. That's the little line where it says okay. That's where I signed my name on it. And every Sunday they put their money in envelopes. This is Joe. Actually, this was taken about 2 years ago. He's 21 years old. He just went off the cash system onto a debit card and money management system that we use. But he did it until he was 21. He's paying for college himself. He'll graduate in December without debt. It's an amazing thing. It works. Thank you. We're proud of him too.
Okay, so rules for parents. Start small. Don't start big. When our kids, you can start our system at 3 years old. We recommend like a 3-part bank. Initially, it was just one little bank, okay? Then when they got to be 5, it was a 3-part bank. And then when they get to be 8, they can do the envelopes. So our kids start out with 5 cents a point, okay? Communicate with feedback. In other words, you've got to give them lots of teaching, lots of encouragement. Make sure you inspect the chores that they do. And they're not going to do them right when they're learning. Okay, they're not going to do them right. Just get that in your head so that you can go back and retrain and inspect and teach them.
I can't tell you how many times we had to inspect Joe's job of watering the garden because the plants were like this. Joe, I got to tell you, let's inspect the soil. I want to see how far your water went down. You know, in Arizona, if you don't water it, it dies. You know, so we dig up the soil and it was wet maybe that far down. And then I showed him where the roots were. We had to train constantly.
Okay, and the kids' rules are earning their points, obviously. They have to have a good attitude. Not only getting their task accomplished, but they have to have a good attitude. They have to fill out their time card every day. They have to find mom or dad to sign their time card. And if they don't, they lose their points. This is training them for the real world. When John went out and got his very first job, he forgot to punch his time card, and I was upset, and I'm like, talk to the supervisor. He's like, no, Mom. There's a sign right over the time clock that says if you don't punch your time clock, you don't get paid. So I blew it, okay? So they've got to learn how to survive in the real world, and this is going to help them do that. They've got to add up their points. They've got to divide their pay into their envelopes. They're learning money skills. They need to record their expenses. They need to learn the discipline of doing that. So there's lots of things the kids learn as they work this system. Now let me just share, you know, we're on the verge of empty nest. We've had 5 kids. I have loved mothering, okay? loved mothering so much that I've had to borrow kids because I miss them. And so, like, I have a niece. I've talked to some of you, and there's some of you out there that don't have kids. Borrow some, okay? Like, I have a niece that has three little kids, and the two older ones, I bring them over to my house. This last week, we had them over on Saturday. We took them outside. We had them do a chore so they could earn money. They picked up pine cones in the backyard. Then we took them to the railroad park, and with their money, they bought tickets to ride the train and the carousel. So they're not even my kids, they're my nieces. But I love them to bits, and I want to start teaching them some things. So even if you don't have kids, surely you can find some in your life to invest in.
So the jewels for doing the parenting tool is that not only are we teaching them to manage their own money, but we're also teaching them that attitude matters. Attitude matters. How long would you keep your job if you did it like this? Well, maybe if you're an accountant. No, I don't. No offense to accountants, really. But if you had a crummy attitude when you did the job, you wouldn't be around the company very long. We need to teach our kids that that affects everything. We teach them to work hard, that work produces profit. And it does. And they may not do it perfectly at first, but eventually they will. Our son John took the habits we taught him at home. One of the jobs we had was called light bulb patrol. Go around the house, check the light bulbs. If any of them burned out, he replaced them. That was his job. So we're at church one day, and he's walking down. Actually, the Sunday school teacher, what do you call it? I'm stuttering again.
Children's coordinator.
Children's coordinator comes up to Annette and says, "Your son just said the strangest thing to me." And we're sitting there going, "Oh no, did he swear? I mean, what did he say?" He said, "I was walking down the hallway with him, and he looked up and he said, 'Oh, there's a light out up there.'" She said, "Most kids would never notice that."
And I said, "Oh, that's because he has light bulb patrol at our house."
So
okay.
Fast forward about 8 years, he's working at the church now as a sound and lighting technician. He ended up earning $50,000 a year working as a sound and lighting technician because he's one of the best there is. And he goes into the graveyard of all the old equipment they had. He starts selling it on eBay, making the church money out of stuff that people just
I think
threw
he
away.
earned the church over $20,000 by selling off their equipment. He also found him a source online to find cheaper light bulbs, saved him $100 a bulb or something.
You know, $200.
Okay, our daughter Becky, she did an internship. She has a equine science degree and loves horses. So part of her degree was doing an internship for one semester. Well, this gal that she did the internship for loved her so much. She was so conscientious with the horses that she's still riding there today, years and years later. She's graduated and she's still allowed to ride there.
Our son Roy was taking a community college class while he was in high school. It was a Spanish class. He picked it up so fast that because he learned to study, because he learned to plan, that one day the teacher had to go to a meeting, said, "Roy, finish teaching this class for me."
He wasn't even in college, and he was teaching all the other college kids in the class. Our son Joe, he's number 4. He was taking college. The first college he was going to was a private college, and he was majoring in business, but he was on the baseball team, and some of the baseball kids were really struggling with their grades. And so the advisors said, "Joe, can you help tutor these kids?" So while Joe's on the baseball team working part-time and doing his own classes, he's tutoring the kids on the baseball team in their business classes.
Okay, I just want to show you a picture of Abby. This is Abby when she's 9 years old. Okay, she started everything early. She did everything well. She's also paying for school on her own. She's an athletic training major, doing not internships, clinicals right now. Mm-hmm. She's working like crazy. 9 years old, when she was 9 years old, she saved $60 to buy an American Girl doll. It took her 9 months to do it. Incredible celebration. Nothing is impossible for this girl. But 9 years old, saved $60. We did Montel Williams' show, and she loves going to dances, colonial balls, so she has a closet full of gowns. I think you saw it on the video. And so she bought this gown for $25. This is when she's 13. We had to keep her locked up. And this is when she was awarded her President's Scholarship at Grand Canyon University, worth $40,000. I'm telling you that the training we did all along pays huge dividends. And the truth is, the USDA says it's going to cost you $261,000 to raise a child from 0 to 17, exclusive of college. We totaled up, I got the figures when we wrote this book, how they calculate it. Based on so many cubic feet in a car, so many square feet in a house, so much for food, so much for clothes. It's all based on Washington, D.C. figures. We spent about 77% less than that raising our kids. And they don't feel entitled. They know they can earn their way through life. And that's what we want to do with our kids. We are raising future adults. We are not raising perpetual children.
So ask yourself this question tonight. Thank you. Ask yourself this question tonight. How different would life be if you made some changes in your money smart parenting? How different would your life be? And this book also deals with if you've got older kids, if you've got kids in college, if you've got kids that go out on their own but then come back home. What do you do? How do you love them and encourage them to be responsible and grown up without enabling them? And this book has answers for that.
And if you have kids that are headed towards college, I think it's chapter 18. It's the largest chapter in this book. And this will outline for you how we helped our kids go through college without borrowing a penny. And it's actually being considered to be used in a curriculum at the university where our kids are attending because they know that that is a problem, that student loans are killing people. Okay, look, life is full of systems. You don't become excellent at a system immediately. And some of you have tried budgeting. We've heard people say, well, I tried it, but it just didn't work. Budget just doesn't work for me. And I'm saying you had the wrong system. You've got to persevere. Budgeting is the single most important financial management tool you can ever use, and it sounds so stinking boring, but it is the most rewarding. How would you feel if your house was paid off? How would you feel if you set a goal to take a European vacation and you were able to save a little bit of money every month, and maybe it took you 3 years, but you did it?
And you paid cash for it.
Wouldn't that be awesome? Wouldn't that be awesome? It happens. It happens. Life is full of systems, and these are things we do repeatedly. We get dressed every morning. We have a system for that. We brush our teeth every day. We have a system for that. But the question I want to ask you tonight, and the thing I want you to kind of think about, and maybe even take a moment and write it down. What is that one area of frustration where you're going, doggone it, I don't want to do this. I'm avoiding it like crazy, but I know I need to do this. Is it deal with something, emotional wound in your past? I've done that. It made me sick to my stomach. But I did it. It's scary. But dealing with stuff and going through it and coming up with a system to manage it, it's huge rewards, huge amounts of peace. So is it something emotional? Is it something you've tried and, I'm trying to learn this new program and I can't do it? Okay, find somebody to help you. How are you going to get through it? Set a goal, do it. Spend some time, commit to becoming excellent at it. It'll happen.
And you know what's awesome is we aren't the only people out there that are communicating frugal messages to the nation. So if you go to your library, you'll probably be able to find 5 or 10 books about frugal living. Read them all. Make it your goal this year to learn a different way to live. There's plenty of resources out there, and it doesn't have to cost you anything to start.
Look, Annette's my hero. When we were first married, she was the typical girl who had a closet full of clothes. Her mother did the cooking, the cleaning, and she went off to parties. When we got married, she looked at me, and my dad told me I should work 2 jobs, Annette should work 1 job, so that we can save all of our money and be in a house in 3 years. We decided to buck the system. I worked 1 job. Annette begged me to stay home to learn to manage a home, to cook meals, and to manage our money. And I said, that sounds kind of crazy to me. And my dad said we should earn, and we did it. 3 years, almost to the day, we bought that house.
The first house.
We put 15% down. We paid it off 9 years later. She wanted to learn to manage a home. It was overwhelming for her. She had no training, and she did it. And now she's written about it. We wrote about it together. That is an amazing thing. It's an overwhelming idea to think about. But we put together systems. She put together a system for grocery shopping. We put together a system together for managing our money. We put together systems for teaching our kids. This one guy came in and interviewed us, and he was saying it he was mad at us. He didn't like us. He said, you guys have more systems than NASA. And I go, thank you, because systems are what leads to success.
But the truth is, when you start it, like we've said all along tonight, at first it takes a monumental effort to learn it. But after a while, it is just like brushing your teeth. You don't have to think about it anymore. It becomes second nature. You know, when we started out, someone said, oh, you're going to be worth millions. We haven't gotten there yet, by the way. And they said, well, you know, you won't be doing this. I said, are you kidding me? We will be like the Beverly Hillbillies without the mansion, you know? I mean, we've been doing this for so long. I just couldn't see how we could be living life any different. Some of you don't even know who the Beverly Hillbillies are, do you? I could just tell from the looks on their faces.
Okay, go to YouTube, look up Beverly Hillbillies. That's your assignment for tonight.
That was scary, you guys.
Okay, so can you take a challenge? I dare you. I dare you to sit down tonight when you go home, when it's quiet, and write down 3 things that you have been avoiding. That you've been avoiding. That you know you need to deal with. Pay off that credit card. Get rid of that junk that's in the back room. We're doing that right now. Holy cow. You know, when you have when you're frugal, you know, and you teach your kids to be frugal, you know what you are? You're a junk magnet. I mean, they bring home everything. We bring home everything.
It's pretty hard to turn down free stuff, isn't it?
Make a list of 3 things. Then let it sit on that list for a week. Come back to it, but come back to it with a decision that I am going to deal with one of those things. And I don't care what it takes. I don't care if you cry for a week. I've done that. I don't care if it feels overwhelming. We've been there. You can do this. It can change and revolutionize your future. I just want to go back to where we started with the hammer. When you look at a beautiful house, realize that a master craftsman who probably started off when he was 5 years old, banging on a little plastic Fisher-Price workbench, making a lot of noise but producing nothing, ended up with an incredible desire and drive to become excellent at what he did, just like many of you have done. And that drive to become excellent not only produced a living for him, but produced a dwelling for someone else that's a beautiful place. And that's what happens when we commit to looking at a tool and saying, how can I use this best and follow the rules? We're going to end up building a mansion. It's going to be a jewel, and it's going to bless not only us, but everybody around us. And that's what I'd love to hear from you guys when, a month from now, 2 months from now, when you've worked on it for a while and you've conquered something, send us an email. Now, anybody who, first off, you got our book. You can go to our website, go to the iQ page, download the free stuff that we have there. We have email addresses. You can send us notes. We'd love to hear from you. We love interacting with people who say, I'm going to conquer this. And the last thing is anybody who buys stuff, and you don't have to buy stuff today, but if you do buy stuff, we have a $20 free gift we're going to give you. So that's over at the table. Don't be afraid. You can conquer huge goals. You can do it. Don't delay. Let's see. Now, we've got a little bit of time.
No,
we can take a couple of questions if you have them.
Do we have time to take a couple of questions? Anybody want to ask a question?
Don't plan what we're going to do until we look at what we have. And so we plan what we're going to spend based on what we have. So if you only have $100, can you be creative with $100 to get presents for everybody?
Pinterest is a great place. My younger daughter just turned me on to Pinterest. Holy mackerel, that thing is unbelievable for crafts.
And then next year, if you don't like what you had this year, start in January saving. And what we do is we put aside $40 every 2 weeks into our gift account.
But don't ever feel pressured to spend money you don't have, okay? We've been in situations where people want group gifts, and they'll say, oh, can you cough up $50 or $100 for Dad?
Yeah.
We're like, sorry, we already bought Dad's present. Because that just $50 to $100 wasn't in our budget for a gift. So don't be pressured to do that. Bow out of it if you need to.
Any other questions? Looking, yes. The hardest thing we've had to do in the course of this work as far as saving money or as writing books, or there's a lot of hard things. I'll tell you what the hardest is. Being married. And staying married and viewing her as my friend and my ally and not an enemy. Because I have a tendency to wander in my thinking, and she is razor focused. And that may be different for, different couples. But working as a team is the most rewarding thing we've done.
I think if I can have a turn answering that question,
Nope.
one of the hardest things for me was when we were first starting our frugal journey, and we had a whole bunch of young couples that we were friends with that lived in the same apartment complex, and this one guy, we were earning like $12,000 a year, and he was earning $30,000 a year as a computer programmer.
Well, I went to college with him, so we were friends.
thought he was filthy rich, and they had the furniture truck drive up and
Scandinavian furniture.
And bring in teak furniture, and I just sat on our brown and orange plaid garage sale couches, and I just sobbed. Because that might be a great color for some of you in there, but it's not in my color wheel, okay? and so I sat on these couches and I just sobbed because I was looking at our friends, and all our friends looked like they had more than we did. But I was committed to living frugally. And so, and for us it meant not putting huge balances on credit cards that we could not pay back. That just was not an option for us.
And about a year and a half later, I got a bonus at work, and we bought the couches that we thought were the most beautiful couches in the world from JCPenney with a coupon that we never thought we could afford. And we still have them to this day. Question over here. Have we had experience with empty nesters who are over 50 and need to change the way they live?
And the truth is, we don't do coaching anymore one-on-one because we're just too busy with other stuff going on in our business. But all the principles that we teach in our book apply no matter what your age is.
And there is one organization, what we recommend when either couples are having struggles over finances or a single person, is we need to get somebody else on our team. We need to build a team. Businesses, they put together advisory boards, they have regular staff meetings, they put together the best brains to help them. We need to do that as families. We have an advisory board for our business, and there are some of our friends that have known us for 30 and 35 years. We get together 4 times a year, and we talk about what's real. We talk about our marriage.
And they're not afraid to disagree with us.
So get somebody on your team. Money Management International is incredibly, I think they may be called Money Management International or Consumer Credit Counseling. If you have credit card debt or creditors hounding you, get help. I bet if you go talk to somebody at IQ Credit Union, they have people who can help you. But get the debt monster off your back and get your money managed. But yeah, it's going to be changing habits. And change is never easy, but it's always good. Anybody
Any other
else?
questions? There's one.
We've been married for 31 years.
Yep, and we've been giving for 31 years. And at first, we didn't have a lot to give. So our gifts were $10, okay? In the years when he was earning a whole lot, they were hundreds of dollars. So giving is a definite part of our lifestyle, and very rewarding for us. And
but if people, what we did when we were coaching people is if they didn't have money to give, we'd say, look, money isn't the only thing you give. Give your time. Go sit in the church nursery and rock a baby. Go down to a homeless shelter and serve a meal.
But if you want to come back by the table, we can talk a little bit more about that afterwards. There was a question down here.
Will you run for president and vice president?
They kick us out of Washington, D.C.
Thank you.
But we did have somebody write and tell us we should run. Yeah.
Yes.
Craziest thing we've ever spent money on. A guitar that's now worth about $3,500. But back in
when was that? 90, like around 90?
I found it at it was a used guitar. It was a Martin D41, and I got it for $900. But what it was I'd gotten a bonus at work, and this is covered in this book. It's called the windfall plan. You plan in advance for any excess money that comes in. so that it doesn't become an argument. We knew that anything extra that came in, a certain percentage was going to go to give, a certain percentage was going to go to pay the house off, a certain percentage was going to go to save,
Or
and a
special
certain percentage-
projects.
A certain percentage was going to be there to play with.
A very small amount. We
Because-
let ourselves play with a very small amount.
Because we can reach any goal we want as long as we have a little bit
And
of fun
so,
with it.
so this one year, we were trying to get our house paid off, and he brought in a big bonus, and I just felt like I had everything I needed. I don't know what I asked for, but it was probably not anything more than $50 or something. And I said, honey, go buy that guitar. You've been wanting that guitar. Just go get it. And so that's what he chose to do with some of the money. Any other questions?
Right.
Okay.
Let's make this the last one.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. That's a good question. What other resources would we recommend? Clark Howard is on the radio. He's got a great website. He's a consumer advocate. Dave Ramsey is the Energizer Bunny for getting out of debt and making money. The only bone I have to pick with Dave is that sometimes he emphasizes working too much and gaining income too much that you may sacrifice your family.
Right.
I would take a more balanced view because I don't believe that it's helpful for you to work 3 jobs and end up
Divorced.
divorced. It costs you more. So from a frugal standpoint, I just wouldn't do it. But you don't have to work that hard. You have to be smarter. Our books, I would look at moneysavingmom.com is a great one for saving on groceries. And we did a radio interview with her, and this girl...
We've got frugal friends on our website.
Yeah, there's a ton of them, but you need to immerse yourself in a different kind of thinking if you're trying to change.
Right.
So start listening
And like
to the
we
right
said, the
voices.
library shelf has tons of books on frugal living.
We are so blessed to be here.
Yes.
We're so blessed to be anywhere. And you guys have been wonderful. We're going to hang around as long as you want to stay or until they turn the lights off and kick us out. But thank you, iQCU Credit Union. And here comes Julie.
I don't know.
One quick thing. If you are a member and you didn't have a chance to check in or weren't able to get one of the books, we have some extra books. So you're welcome to stop by the table out here and pick up a book. Thank you.